welcome to another episode of Antimatter Garage. You know what I'm doing? There were a few videos online about doing this. I watched them all, I think, and once again, not super happy with the way those came out. The best one was by a couple guys called Dimly Lit Garage. I'll put a link in the description. But their camera kept going out of focus. It was really kind of annoying. I'm going to try and do a better job, and I'm going to try and make it quick because there are enough resources, and I also have a manual here somewhere on how to, that came with the top and how to do it. A couple things I want to describe though are the tops are available online. I paid about $500, a little over $500 for my top from convertibletopguys.com. I'll put it in the description. But I asked one of the 3 or 4 places that sold them what the difference was, and they said that they all sold the same product. So I guess the only real reason to go with one over the other would be, service and price. Now there are higher quality tops. I'm going to replace it with vinyl. I've done this once before. I don't really remember totally how to do it. I do remember you have to have a pop rivet gun, which I now have because I bought it for that. And I decided then to go with a cheaper vinyl type top because that's what came on the car. Also, it was a $300 savings, and I heard that if you get the cloth tops, which can look nicer, that they can kind of saturate. I don't know, maybe I should have tried it this time, but I didn't decide to go with the same thing, and it wasn't a very good top. This one didn't last anywhere near as long as the original, and I'll show you some other issues. On the OEM top, there was a hole that formed right about here. It was real small. I couldn't even get my pinky through. I could have forced it through, but it was all the way through though. And strangely, it didn't leak. When I put this top on, which as you can see isn't in that bad, it doesn't look like it's in that bad a shape. I had my wife spray the top. I got inside and watched for leaks, and there weren't any when the water came straight down, but it was a hose. And she was hosing sort of in this direction from the back, and it leaked like crazy back here. I said, just stop doing it, But it doesn't leak as long as it's sort of like normal rain. If you force water under here, then it will. And I think that's just something you're gonna have to live with. But also, you can see these little mash marks here. At one point, the back window fell out of this thing, and I had to glue it back in. And I looked online how to do it, and I made my own little clips to sort of hold it in place while I did that. Unfortunately, I put glue on both this. There's a metal frame in here. Sorry, let me point down again. There's a metal frame in here, and it wraps around. And I put glue on both sides of that frame, and that was a mistake. I should have only put on the back side, because when I put my clamp on there, it squished into the glue and left these little squish marks, as you can see here. So if you have to fix your window, don't do that. But it's held pretty well. It's been like that for a couple of years. Wow. God, the car's so dirty. This one is failing, however, up here, and this is what's primarily made me decide to go ahead and change it now, even though the rest of the top's pretty good. See, it's got a hole there, and it catches the wind and makes noise when I drive. I may not finish this install today. I think it's definitely a one-day doable job, but there is a screw in here that screws into something. I have a feeling it screws into plastic, and the plastic must have broken and come out, and you can hear it rattling around. And this kind of happened, and it's been like that since more or less since I first installed it, so that also doesn't make me happy. Let me show you one other thing. That's this area right here. You can see that's not great. So people complain about these. Are called ears, and they usually stick up sort of like that if you don't do anything. And I didn't like that because that is where I had my little hole, or a worn spot right there, and it was always where it puckered. You can even see a little crease almost right there where it's starting to pucker, right? What I found is it doesn't matter if it folds nice and neat underneath. You can get rid of the ears. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to do it on this one. I watched the video on how to do it, and it kind of goes like that a little bit. Or if it sticks up over the top, which just looks unimpressive while driving. But either way, they get these creases, and that's where you're going to get your wear, and that's where eventually you're going to get like a hole. So if it only concerns, if you don't care that it looks like this, then don't worry about it. But if you're But if you're worried about it getting a hole where there's like a crease or something, I don't think there's anything you can do about that, because it's going to get one. It's just going to move the location. As always, step 0 is to turn on some music, which you can't hear because of copyright. Step 1, I think, would be to look at the top and make sure they sent you the right one. I can't compare the two because I want to do this before I took the top off, so I can't overlay them, but just looking at it, this looks a lot like, you know, the right top. So it's kind of nice, actually. This looks sort of nicer than the one I have on. I like this, this sort of surface looks nicer, like it's going to be easier to clean. This one seems to have bigger sort of diamond pattern in it, if you will, and that makes it hard. You know, you wipe across it and stuff gets stuck in the grain, sort of, I think, more so than this one's going to do. We'll see. I'll let you know. I think you have to, but if you decide to pull the seat belt off as I've done, I just want to get everything out of the way. It's not that hard. And you lose where all the washers and stuff go. Here's the order they're coming off of my car. So first, there's one left behind up here, right? Then there's this big washer, and then this little lock washer, and then a flat washer, which all this seems, I think this is to get this to rotate and still be, you know, firmly attached to the car. I think that's why there's so many washers in there. So that's how that goes. And it says to start here, you know, the instructions say to start here at the front, and there is a screw here, and like a little plastic clip thing here. All right, to get the plug out, I put 2 small screwdrivers in there, as you see, and then I just pried it out. The instructions said I should have put like a metal washer or plate under here to protect that rubber when I pried it out with the screwdriver. I found mine's pliable enough, it wasn't a problem, but it probably is a good idea. And then this whole side comes off here. There's another plug in the back I will show you. And right there at the tip of my finger is another little plug. So you have to open the top to the right, you know, angle in order to get that out. Here, and here, but this isn't coming off. And I'm tempted to just force it off. I thought about sliding. It's kind of embarrassing. I've actually done this about 5-6 years ago. I don't remember, but this doesn't want to come off even though I've undone all the screws. I'll let you know what happens. I also want to point out there is also a screw right up under the front, right there. Don't forget that one, or else you'll start mangling this piece along here. After looking at it carefully, I stuck a screwdriver down in here a little bit, figuring it didn't matter if I ripped the top, it's old anyway, right? And it came out with some black on it, and I became convinced that what was going on was that this piece was glued on, and you know, when you have trouble getting something off, eventually you just force it, right? And that's what I did, and of course that's what was going on. Instructions show that you wrap this around, cut it, and then glue it in place, so that must be for an older design or something, because this has the same thing. So I found out the screw that was rattling around in there. It's the one that's supposed to hold this spring on right here, so I don't know if it just loosened over time and came off, or if I never tightened it down or what, but that's what that was all about. Okay. So the instructions said you need to begin the tedious task of pulling the sides away from the glue that holds them down. But I think those are really old instructions, because mine has those 3 that I showed earlier, those 3 clips that are held on with screws. I don't have any glue, and I don't have any glue here. And I can tell you right now, I didn't get any leaks through here. So I would not glue there unless you have to. Like if you just have a flap and you have no choice, then go ahead and glue like the instructions say. But those instructions show a piece of fabric like hanging down here, and you're supposed to cut it, you know, fold it up in there and then glue it, and that's why the contact cement's so hard to pull away. But mine doesn't have that at all, and I think all the new ones don't, because both my old top, this top, and in the instructions for the Toyota don't show gluing there. Now I did glue here, as you saw, And I don't know if it was necessary, but again, I did not have any leaks, so I probably will do this again. The instructions that came with the top said that to note that there was a little spot of caulk here, or whatever, that will hold this cable and keep it from wandering, I guess, sort of left and right in the track, and you should note where that is. And to me, it looks like that one's right there on this top. It's right here, and you can even see what they're talking about, how the cable, with this peeled back anyway, the cable kind of, well, it gets better, I guess. Anyway, okay, I'm really glad I'm making this video now, because they keep both instructions, the ones that came with the top and the one in the manual for the Toyota, talk about caulk, like in this area, and I think it's important to keep this piece because it's like sort of spongy, and it's got a lot of caulk on the back side, so be careful. But if you pull that up, make sure you hang on to it so you can put it back over this area to protect the roof from getting, you know, worn away there. But the caulk that holds this cable in place, I don't even understand that. There's a metal, it's a metal flap here, see? That's what you have to undo that and pull it out, and then you push this back in when you reinstall. So, you know, I'm really glad I'm doing this, because they keep talking about caulk, and there's caulk in there to hold it for sure, but you can't get it out without moving the metal. Alright, so the instructions then said that you take your pry tool and you pry this apart all along the way. I can tell you it's very fragile. I didn't break it. I don't mean it's fragile that way. I mean that it's easy to bend back. So I don't know how many bends you get out of it, but you can see that the fabric is basically captured on that little lip. This is for the inside, the headliner, basically. So once you've pried this little metal piece back all the way across, I find it's easier to put the top down-ish to do this next part, to pull it out. And there was also some glue right down here on the bottom. I think there's kind of a tape they give you or something that's down there. Once you get that off, you can kind of pull it out of that groove there, just like that. This headliner is part of the new top, so after you pull that out, you don't have to worry about like hurting it or anything. At least it was part of my top, and I'll put in the description which one I bought. To prevent the ears in this corner, the video I saw said to put this strap through a pocket on here. I do not have a pocket on here. The only pocket is this one, but there's clearly no way a strap's going to fit through that. But I have this, and this may be a newer design, I don't know. I'll have to go check and see how old that video is. But he said the strap, which in mine is still there at least, wraps around this bar, and I guess a lot of people weren't doing that either. Mine does. So I guess if yours looks like mine, there's not much you can do really. Just put it in that way. I thought maybe there's a pocket back here, but I definitely can't get my fingers under there. So yeah, no pocket. And this strap and this spring thing here did not come with the new top, so make sure you save those and use them on your next top. Also, if you're into sci-fi like I am, it's good to plan ahead, and if you can think of a scene where like a monster rips a hole in your roof, now's a good time to do that without actually ripping a hole in your roof. So actually you don't need to move this this foamy pad thing here. Like this one, you can see I was able to bend it out and take it out, and I think it's the same on the other side. And this part wraps around that bar. I hope that's visible on the camera. Then you can pull more of the top away, but it's glued. This is all glued, so it's going to take some effort, like that. There's a spring in here in this fabric that protects it. I was having trouble moving it out of the way because it was caught. There's a little, you can probably see it now, there's a little pin that the spring attaches to, and this was caught on that spring, so I couldn't pull it back. It's actually still kind of hard to move it out of the way, but I don't think you have to go very far before you can see that. And you just, there's a hole, you just pull it out. And I assume these springs come with the new top. If not, I suppose you could probably get that out of there and reuse it. You do have to reuse those springs. So if you're lost in all this at some point, from the cable, from the end of the cable down, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth one, that's where the little springs go. So you take them off and you put them on over here. And I used a little fabric. I had trouble getting it on because the spring's so short when it's not extended out. But you can see you feed it from sort of underneath, and then that goes on. All right, the next thing is to get to there's a spring in here apparently somewhere, but this cloth is really in the way. And when I go to try and figure out how to get it out, I can't. And that's because there's Velcro holding it on. But if you're taking things apart the way I am, this window's falling in, everything's falling in and putting pressure on that. So I would recommend releasing those maybe even before you start doing anything. But worst case, what you can do is take the top and put it back on, kind of, giving you some space inside to get to that cloth. That's when I can hear the top slipping. All right, so hang on, let me see if I can get in there. Okay, so I'm inside the car, and you can see here's the doorway, right? Here's that cloth that wraps around neatly behind here, and that's where the Velcro is, right where my ring finger is. So if you can get this out of the way, you can kind of peel that Velcro off, and then it comes out of the way, and you can see the spring now. You can see I used zip ties last time. I don't know what went on there, but it seems to have worked. So in case it wasn't clear from the last video, this strap here that comes down at an angle has Velcro on the back, and that's where this Velcro was attached to. It gives it kind of a neat look, neat clean look. This strap, so I cut the zip ties loose, and this strap goes in between. There's a little sort of double bar here, it goes in between, so that comes out there. And I think in a minute I'm going to have to, I have to drill these rivets out to get this off, if I remember correctly. And then of course you peel the spring off. You can use needle nose pliers for that. This one I'm not sure of. See you in a minute. I'm not sure if this showed up in the last time I filmed. So the spring goes from basically rib to rib. This is rib 3 and this is rib 4. So down on, there's these little clips here you see, and you can pry it off, and you're going to need to reuse that. I'll speak English. Actually, I don't see any reason to remove this spring at all. I don't think it stops anything from coming off, so I'm going to leave it on. However, this goes down to the top down there. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a bolt. It can be removed with a bolt and just left hanging, I think, since it's attached to the car. So to remove the package tray, after you undo this stuff up in the front here and get this flap off, in the back there are 2 hinges, and if you stick your fist underneath and just sort of pry up, they'll pop off of those hinges. It feels real hard, like you're gonna break it, but it actually does come off. And I think I can pull this out now. Okay, I can't pull it out just yet because there's a snap right here, but as long as I'm on that subject, these catch water, and you can see they also catch leaves. So while you're in here, you should definitely clean that out. Mine's completely plugged. You can kind of see how this forms a sort of fabric funnel, and below the fabric funnel it goes into this plastic tube here, and then out the side vent, and that's where your water goes, or maybe it goes below, I'm not sure, but either way it comes out that way. And so when it gets plugged up with leaves like that, I've had it where the whole brunk just filled up with water. There was like a gallon of water sloshing around in there. And when I just took the brunk out, there was a little bit of water there. So it's good that this is happening so I can take all that out. Okay, now that I can see it better, there's the quote-unquote hinge for that package tray. And you can see there must be a, tube, the hinge sort of pops into this little hole here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and remove this back piece, and I can clean it up while I'm there, which is kind of nice. And it looks like it just has two plastic clips. See that one up there? I hope. I can't see the camera right now. One on one side, one on the other. Three maybe. There's one in the middle as well. And then that'll come out, and behind that apparently are a bunch of like screws or nuts or something. I don't know if I said to do it, but remove the big back liner there and then unplug this clip here. So it's trying to pull this up to get to the screws, and then I realized, oh, it's actually I gotta pull this up. And there's one, and another one over there, and some more on the other side. To get my top out of the way, I just pulled and then put this clamp right here. I just wrapped it around. There's the strap. This flap has a little loop that goes around this hinge, if you will, and I can't really see it, but from here I can feel there's a snap on it. So if you undo the snap, I think it'll come off of there. Surprise! I got done pulling the bolts out up here. I pulled this down, and look, more bolts. So I guess you have to undo those too. A lot of crap gets trapped down in there. You probably see a lot of it came out. I think this is a pretty good design because this is like a thick, heavy rubber waterproof thing that is attached all the way up underneath the body of the car. And then this, I think they're calling this a rain rail. And so it's important that, remember I said I pulled it down, surprise, there were more nuts. That's important. It needs to have a V that this goes in like that, so that if any water does get in there, it'll run toward the funnels. At this point, the last thing holding the top on is right down in this corner here. Everything's all done. It's right down in this corner. And that one has thrown me for a loop, but I finally figured out on the other side. What you have to do is get this out of the way. It's behind it. So that's not real easy to do. I'm not sure I can even do it with, oh, I never cut these. I never finished on this side. All right, so I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but basically this has to go out of the car, and it'll expose right down there a little plate that the cable's attached to, and there's a nut, and you detach that, and don't let it fall because who knows where it's gonna go. But once you get that off, the plate has a little stud on it, and you kind of push the stud until it clears, and then the top should basically come free. And you need to keep the plate, but apparently, the cable comes with the top of you need to reuse the plate. So this is kind of funny. Remember the springs that were attached sort of on these little clips here? And I decided that they didn't really need to come off because they were attached to the car, not the top. Well, I got them off sort of accidentally. I was right, they don't need to come off, but one of the steps in here was putting this guy where it belongs. I don't know why it's at this point instead of later, but anyway, I realized that it didn't reach, and I realized, oh, well, this bow can move, and I could bring it down, then it'll reach, and when I brought it down, both springs popped off and shot across the garage. They landed up on top of the garage door. I had to shut the door and have them fall on the ground. I got lucky I found them both. But, well, that may be why they tell you to take them off. So the instructions that came with the top didn't tell me how long of a pop rivet I need, which kind of sucks. But I think when I look in here, I notice I have fewer of these than I do any of the others. So I'm guessing it's this one. I don't use pop rivets a lot, so I'm thinking the last time I used it was probably this. I think I have some more elsewhere. I'll go look. Anyway, when I figure out what length is needed, I will go ahead and either put it in the description or tell you on this video. But I think it's important before you go any further. This is kind of dirty, and it's even kind of like got a greasy feel to it. So I think I'm going to clean it up first. I'm going to mark the holes where the pop rivets are. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out because most of them have these sort of slotted hole where you don't put the pop rivet. And you can't put it here because that's going to correspond to the stud in the car that it goes through and you bolt it on. So you need to make sure you get them in the right spot. You start from the inside and work outward. You'll notice this one's actually round, so you definitely want to make sure that you get it in the right hole here. So I'm going to mark them all because I know it went in okay. And if you don't know about pop rivets, I'm not going to spend a long time because it's not a pop rivet video. It's a convertible top video. Oh, and I counted 13 rivets, so you're going to need a minimum of 13 if you go to buy the, a kit or something. All right, learn from my mistake. That's kind of why I'm doing this, I guess. I was drilling out the rivet, and because it's sort of a ball on the bottom end, it was kind of doing this deal, and my bit slipped off, and I gouged very quickly, I might add, this very robust material. Now, I kind of doubt it went through, but I'll find out when I get it off. The other thing is the rivet's spinning, so my bit is not having much of an effect because they're all just spinning together. So you really kind of need to get something on the backside and grab that rivet as best you can. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot to grab there. Now, it could be that that's, like if you look at this one, there's more to grab, right? So maybe it's because I was drilling it. So just, be very careful. It's off now, and before I remove it, I just wanted to note that when this is on, there are two holes, that showing. There are two holes showing, and I guess it's going to be the same on the other side. Also, on a couple of these that got kind of messed up, the hole is kind of big, and this one, the first one where I messed up is one of them. You can see the rivet actually went through that hole. It expanded enough where it came out. So I don't know how a new rivet's going to hold that in place. The only thing I can think of is maybe I can put a washer under it. Now, you want these to kind of be flat, but I'll show you where they sit in the car. They're going to be those on the outside, so they're going to be up against this surface here, and you can even see here and here indentions where they go. So you don't want to make that too thick because that's car behind that, and it's going to just push that rain rail out a little bit. But maybe I don't have a choice, or maybe the rivet will hold well enough. Brand new rivet, it might go through. I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have to make your own decision what to do if something like this happens. You could try a dab of, I don't know, RTV or something underneath the head. All right, so to make the holes, I used a drill. This was dangerous because I've done this on fabric before, and it wrapped around the drill bit and shredded, and basically it was chaos. But I was very careful, went really slow, put my fingers under to support it, and drilled through, and it went okay. And honestly, it drills pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and drill every single spot on here. So a couple of notes on the install. I was drilling holes basically everywhere I saw these, and I drilled a smaller hole where the smaller one was, and a bigger hole where the bigger one was, and although that one still needs one. And I got to a point where it didn't seem like things were going right. This one, there's nothing on the outside, and I decided to count my holes. And when I did, and I lined them up, I noticed that if two holes are out, then the first hole here is, it's got a rivet, so that's a rivet, and then there's 2 holes here, and 2 holes here, and then there's 2 holes here, which is those. So there isn't one here where that hole implied there was, so I stopped. Fortunately, I don't think we need that hole. However, remember I told you that when I used the drill before and it caught, well, on this edge here, that's exactly what it did. It caught and it started spinning and tearing it up, as you can see, so no bueno. Maybe on this one you use an awl and just punch the hole through, you know, or an ice pick or whatever you've got, and punch that hole through. The instructions said when you put one in, you should put something in the next hole over to sort of make sure it goes on straight, I guess. I had a little issue over here I'm not real happy with. The new ones I bought are like, I don't know, they were all mixed up when I opened the box, and I didn't realize that I grabbed the steel one. I didn't want steel in there because I don't want it to rust, so I drilled it out, and when I did, it basically got so hot it just melted the plastic. So I wound up using this larger washer here. It's an actual washer, and I had to stack 2 on the back, so I used the long rivet, the kind I was trying to avoid, but I think it's okay because I think it's inside the car, and I don't think anything's going to be there, I hope. I don't know. I mean, there's that metal piece, and if it doesn't fit over it, I'll have to, I don't know what I'll do. But you can even see it's part of it is actually sort of going in the hole. It actually melted almost an entire hole around it when I drilled it out. So, and this washer's steel because I can have a stainless one or an aluminum one that would fit right. So I don't know. That's not real good. But so I don't know. Just be careful when you drill them out. I'm not even really sure how you could do it otherwise, right? I mean, it's going to get hot when you drill, unless you just drill a little and walk away for 10 minutes, drill a little, you know, take forever. But, so, it is what it is. The top is now ready to go back on, and it says that the first step to put it on is the same as the last step of taking it off. However, I have a lot of stuff I want to do before I go there. A lot of cleaning. Like I mentioned, those leaves that are plugging up, pretty much completely plugged up. My drains need to be cleaned out and vacuumed out, and I want to do some cleaning back here as well before they go in. I wasted a bunch of time going to the store and eating and stuff, so I don't know if I'll get done today or not, but I personally think it's a 2-day job, 1 day to take it off, 1 day to put it in. You could do it in a full day. It'd take a long time, I think. There are a lot of little fiddly bits, and of course I'm one of those people who commonly says, hey, while I'm in there, so while I'm in there, you know, I'm going to clean all this stuff out and wipe it down and clean some of the parts that are on the other side of the garage over there, and that all takes time. Before, after. Okay, it definitely helps to take lots and lots of pictures, or maybe even video like I've done in this case, because now that I'm ready to start with the last step that I did, it's very confusing to me. Here is the bracket, but you'll notice it faces this way. Okay, before you make the same mistake I did, make sure that you connect the top to this metal piece right here, where these 2 arrows, sets of arrows are. And when you do so, make sure that this little metal piece here with the blue arrow goes into the corner of the material as I describe next, before you bolt it to the car. And I know it actually faces that way. So I looked at the video and I see that what happens is this wraps around the bars, goes sort of in between the 2, which means this folds in like that and then goes through those holes down there. So let's see if I can get it in with one hand. Yeah, kind of like that. I don't know if you can even see that on camera if it's too dark. Didn't quite get it in the holes. It's a little tricky. I guess my point though is with all this, you don't need to see it. The point is that, you know, all this stuff is very confusing here, and, you know, even though I just did it yesterday, the way they wrap and the way they stick and what goes in for, like, Like, I needed to make sure when I put those in that this was going to be able to get where it was going. Did I have to stick it through something first or not? You know, so to remember all that, it helps to go back and refer to your video, which I have just done. And so I'm pretty sure that this goes in down there, and then this will wrap around and go in between this bar and this bar. Goes that away. One video I watched, the guy like cut his top off with a knife, which, okay, that may be one way to go. It's maybe fun to tear stuff apart, but I think it's good to keep it in one piece, and here's the reason why. I mean, if it's already in pieces, that's another story, of course, but you may notice, now that I've put this metal piece on, I will show you around the corner. I apologize for all the movement of the camera, but right there where my finger is, hopefully you can see that. I put the bolt on already and it's held in place. But that metal plate outside, right here, is essentially poking kind of into the rubber. See it way down there, right? Now, I think it's doing that on purpose because you want this metal cable is supposed to run, you know, in here and hold it, you know, lock it down, lock the top down, right? But if you look at my old top, it tells you what to do here. That metal is surrounded by the top itself. If I pull that back, you can see the corner, the sharp corner is embedded down in the corner of this, well, top material. So back over here, you may notice, here's my corner, it is not in there. So I think I need to get it, I need to get this corner down in there. So it helps to have the old top around and intact so you can kind of see how these things go. Now I have the challenge of getting it there. So that was easier to do if the top was sort of partially open. This is the piece that goes in the back of the car, along the bottom of the roof, and you can see where that rain rail was. This is what happens when the rivets stick out too much, and actually you can actually even see a bend in it. So I'm actually considering maybe even just drilling holes. That way, you know, in the future, look how many more futures are there for a top. I'll probably die before the next one. But that way I could make the rivets actually longer if necessary. And I do have that one that's real long right now. So that's just an idea. This is the part you shouldn't lose. And so the first comment on the quality or build of the top that I'm using is, you'll notice that this fits nicely on there, right? And on the new top, not so much. How I handled it is I bent it in a little bit. So you can see these two are pointing toward each other now. It goes mostly on, and I'm probably just going to force it with the nut. But if you want to drill out this piece, I implore you to be very careful doing it. Don't just hold on to it. Make sure you clamp it down really good, because I've had that, the material's it's so thin, I've had it grab the bit, or the bit grab it, and wrap around the bit, and that thing acts like a blade and it cuts you all to hell. So make sure, if you do that, that it's very well secured all around, like in a vise completely, and then this drill through. And I may still do that because you'll notice it's not quite there yet. Also, if you wonder how it goes on, this is how it goes on. It should be up. This should point toward the inside of the car. This part should go toward the inside of the car. And so when this goes in, it'll be that way because it flips around. So it should go like that. So if you're wondering, that's how it goes. You know, there are some things that are relatively easy or normal to do in a car, like, you know, you loosen a bolt, it comes off, you take a plate off, that kind of thing. And then there are those other ones that you spend your life doing. It's like a living hell. Well, these two in the corner are the living hell ones. Alright, so all these around the edge are finally on their studs. It was really hard. During the process, I put the bubble wrap that the top came in underneath to support the window glass. That helps. I think a really big pillow, bigger than this, it would be nice if this were held up a little more, under there would be better. I just didn't have any that, you know, meet the criteria and that I wanted to get dirty and all. But the next thing to note is two things in my case. One is that rivet there on my pinky is too long. It's just not gonna work well. You can actually see a dent right there where the old one was. So I'm just gonna cut it and see what happens. I lost two on the other side. Why not lose one over here? I mean, maybe it'll still stay when I cut it, but but what else I want to say really was that this fabric here, you know, goes in some cases under the nuts, and in the rest of the cases over the nuts. So wherever you have a hole, it goes under the nut. So make sure you put that back. That way it'll cover it up, make it look nice, and help water protect it and all. All right, here's how you do the corner bar. If you try and put it on here first, you'll never get that on. You'll push with all your might, and you'll get to within it'll be 1/4 of an inch. The hole's way over here. Put that one on first, and how you do it is this bar will be down. So it's got a bow like this. It'll go on there, and then you have to pull it out so it can clear the studs and push it up and make sure it doesn't pop off up there, of course. But that's just the easier way to do it. It's really hard, and be careful, because as soon as it clears the studs, if you have your fingers behind it, it'll pinch them. So, but I think it's best to put on that one first, and then bend the thing up there until you get all these studs. Otherwise, you'll never get there. Well, making videos has once again proven to be really beneficial on reassembly, because I've got to put the strap on, and I wasn't sure if it went in front of or behind this bar here. So I went and looked at my video, and in fact, it does go on in front. Maybe it's conceptually obvious, but with how the top works, but not to me. So anyway, that strap goes on in front of it. If it wasn't apparent earlier, this back piece goes in with the curved part on the top, because I think it actually touches the top a little bit, so you don't want to put the sharp edge there, so it goes in like that. All right, before you put on the back plate, I've noticed that I could have sworn this thing, I only put holes where this thing had dots. It had a white dot, and I put a hole so it went through here, but this doesn't make any sense for it to go like that, and then it would cover up this from attaching there, which it clearly does. It's got a hole, although it's torn up. So pretty sure this goes over the top, and that Velcro is used for something. So I'll take that back off. Making mistakes so you don't have to. I think that's going to be the motto of the channel. The instructions that come with the top are pretty crappy, to be honest. They tell you at this point, now that the back's in, which they also said to do finger tight, and I apologize for the background noise, that you can now put the cable and the spring on here. And I think you have to disposition all this stuff first, wrap it around where it goes. I don't remember. I got to go look in the, my video to see which way they go. And they say after, you do that, then this will be sort of in place, and you got to start pulling and stretching and get it to look nice. But honestly, and I think maybe that's part of it, but you need to know if they go before, if this cable here is tight here, how are you going to get that? I mean, so, you have to do that first, I think. If you follow their instructions at this point and go to kind of pull the cable up here and to put that on, these straps do kind of fall sort of where they should. Well, that one didn't actually, did it? Okay, there. They kind of fall in front of bar number 3. This is 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So they're going to go in front of 3. And the only one that's kind of weird is this guy, whom I think goes actually under the main bar, which seemed weird to me because it'd be pinched, but there is space there. And there's the cable attached, and it attaches this bar, which pivots up and down. So this is different than the old top. If you put this on the same way the old top was, this flap wants to come out here very strongly. If you try and pull it over, it stresses the material. The only way it made any sense was I undid the metal again, and I brought this over the top. And now it lays nicely, and this flap gets out of the way of this, which was in the way earlier. So I'll just push this back in and then reattach. So on this top, that's how that goes. You can see how the way I had it on before, it just pulls on that strap. There's no way to get this to go around. It just doesn't work at all. So the only way I think this works at all is if you do it this way, is to go ahead and undo it and put on the underside. So then you take it off and you put on the other way, so now it wants to fall nicely like that. Actually, I just did it wrong the second time. It still wants to stick out here. So what happens is you don't want this to wrap around that rubber piece. You want it to be on the other side of the rubber piece. Like that. Now it doesn't want to go that way. It wants to go that way. And that makes a lot more sense. This wraps around neatly. Of course, it does everything to Velcro too, but... So now I'm going to follow their instructions and put the corner on. Okay, before doing this, make sure that the fabric stretches down over the corner marked here with the green arrow and my finger. Because otherwise you're going to have to try and get that around there afterward. And with the top up, it's like way back here. There's no chance. But with the top down, it can get pretty close. I think it might be good to have two people do it at one time. I'm going to see if my wife can help me pull on that corner over there. So if you want to put a new convertible top on your Spyder, my recommendation is to buy a new car. Look at this gap here. I can put my finger easily in it, plenty of space right there. I don't know what's causing that, because the other side doesn't have that. Oh, now that's doing something different. So my concern is that I don't want to have to take this back off because that was very, very difficult to get on. But these keep wanting to come out. But you'll notice that the cable's outside, right? And I think that's what these are for inside. That's what these straps are for, is to pull the top together so these cables stay outside, inside like that. This is what they show, but they said at this point the back nuts should not be tightened. It says to do that now, and I tightened all mine, so I'm gonna go loosen them and see if I can smooth things out, because what I've got is a pucker that happens here, and on the other side I got some similar ones, and I think it's possible that I should loosen those and then tighten them back up to let this go. Now, the back isn't tight yet because the top's not going all the way down, but I think that doesn't happen until, they didn't have theirs down in the picture, right? So, not until you attach all those straps that hold the cable in. Also, clearly there's a problem right here. It's going to need to come down below that, and I think that happens when I put on the metal pieces that match up with this. It's very finicky. It's a lot of little details and things, and it's amazing when you say, oh, it doesn't fit right. You could imagine making a top like this, how it would be hard to get just the fine little corner. Like, this one does not tuck in. It's just different than the other side. The other side's okay. It's not great. I think water's supposed to be allowed in there. It just can't be kept from happening, and then just goes in your drain. But that's just really huge. And this other side, you can see it's difficult to get my pinky in, but I can. But also that doesn't look like that's laying quite right down there. I'm not happy with this. Yeah, these corners, they don't make any sense. Look at that. Just there's nothing holding it in there. I think these holes here, they were not used on the
previous top, but I think these holes are used right there. There are two little holes there, and I think those go screw on there so that holds that corner in. And I'm going to make that happen. Here's my old top, and that is exactly what happened down there. I guess I did use them, it just came out with the top, so I didn't realize it. So I just use this clearance hole, so you have to come up with a nut and a bolt. But it's important to do that because it also holds this metal piece sort of in. I think it's going to hold this metal piece sort of in so that when the top is lowered, I was noticing it was hitting on the rubber down here. I can raise it up right there. You can see where they're interfering. And when I was coming out, so now it seems okay, but when I was coming out, you can watch, it kind of messed with the rubber earlier. And I don't think you want that, so I think this will help with that situation. I just recommend doing it when it's not mostly installed already. Okay, 2 hours later, both sides are done. 2 hours to do what should have been step one, by the way, because this corner's the first thing that happens, right? So you should definitely put those bolts on the plate and get it around the edge before you do step one. I'm still having an issue down in this corner, and I'll show you. There's a couple of things. One, as the top comes down, there, right there, you can see that the metal through the fabric is pushing on that rubber. On this side, you can see here's the corner, and I can tell you there's the metal's right there in the corner. On this side, there's the corner, and there's the metal. And so, before I give up on this, because it's been pretty hard, I think I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to loosen these two screws and see if I can get this to come up onto the corner. On the last top I had, this is what that corner looks like. They've done a much better job. It's all rounded, so it's a lot smoother and gentler on that corner than that other one is. So I need to take care of this now because I have a feeling that's going to tear the top up not in 5 years, but in 2 weeks. Okay, my decision on how to handle this situation was to get that metal into that corner. And due to its sort of sharp nature, I've decided to put some epoxy there to bond these two together because I think they need to stay permanently together, and I'll get a new one with a new top anyway, so I don't have to get it apart, right? And then the other thing I'm going to do is I noticed on the other side, I didn't have to pull down super hard to get to put the bolts in down there. So I've decided to just go ahead and move to make 2 new holes here and here so that I don't have to pull down as much and I won't be trying to pull that out of the corner so much. And then I also checked how far out this piece goes, and I sort of bent this one to match that one, and unfortunately it bends fairly easily. But I don't know what else to do. I kind of think it's a flaw on the top. I don't think it's anything I did back here, but we'll find out if that's going to last or not. Okay, that seems to have worked. It looks much better here. I don't have that pucker coming across anymore. I mean, maybe just a hint of it, but basically it looks a lot like the other side. I made sure I bent it the way the good side was with just using my fingers. I glued it in the corner and clamped it there and let it dry. I just used 5-minute epoxy. And I moved the 2 bolts so it wasn't pulling down on it so much. And it seems like it stayed in the corner, and it looks a lot better now through here. So, yeah, if you have that problem, well, first of all, get it done before you put the top on, of course. But if you have that problem, do what I did. Now, there is still quite a bit of a gap here, and I don't remember the other one being like that. I think water is intended to go there and then down into the funnel and out. I found the same thing happened on my sunroof here. Even though it looks pretty tight along here, I did get a leak one time, and there are little drains there that come down and drain out the bottom, and I got an acorn stuck in there, and it basically flooded the car. But what it told me is that there's a tray all the way around the sunroof where they expect water to get in. They know it's not going to be a perfect seal, and so they just have a way to drain it out, and that's the same here, I guess. Next up is putting the spring on there, and don't forget the little cloth that went on there, but in my case it's broken. I don't know if you can see what that looks like, and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. See, it's got a bit of a head on it, and it goes through, and I think it makes it stronger. The other side is a little flimsy. Yeah, you can see how that stud kind of moves around and doesn't go in, so this whole thing is kind of loose. But how I'm going to handle that is I'm going to stick this spring through the little hole right there that's created where that is no longer, and not worry about it. So I think I documented several times that this strap that I'm pulling on, the one that has the snap on it, goes around the metal bar here. But I never recorded whether or not this other strap goes under the bar or not. Okay, my judgment is that that does not wrap around the bar, that it goes straight across. So how I got those springs on was I stuck my needle nose all the way through, and then I grabbed the spring with the other end. It goes through, trust me. So I've attached the spring and put the fabric back on. And up here I've attached this guy. I hope that's in focus because it's really close. So I brought the flap straight through, but the snap I went ahead and put underneath the bar like I mentioned before. And of course, don't forget the spring one gets fed through here. And now I'm going to attach this guy. I actually remember this one. He comes through the bar, and then you have to put zip ties from here to there. And on this top, they just don't seem to make any holes. You have to make them yourself. They mark them. They put holes in the plastic. They don't put holes in the fabric. So you have to do that, and then go through there, put these two, and pull these two together tight. So because the order they have you do this stuff in, you can't put the headliner in unless you do these straps first. It covers them up. But it's hard to put the headliner in when the top is in the way, and they have you put the top in before this part. And I don't see any harm in doing it the other way. I'm actually going to recommend this if you're doing this. I would attach all those straps across, put in your headliner, and then stretch the front over the first bow. I think you get a better fit on the headliner that way. It'll be easier to do from the top. Now you got to push it in and then squeeze together, all the way down the line and try and keep it straight. And I seem to remember I had a couple of puckers, that's with a U, in my previous one because of putting it on that way. So I put my zip ties on, and I went ahead and put two. They had two holes there, and I like to build things to last, so. A little hint, if you're going to use two straps, put them both through before you tighten one, because once you tighten one, it's hard to get the other one in. The next install step in their instructions, the ones that came at the top, convertible top guys or whatever, is to glue up underneath there moderately with contact cement. And they said don't forget, it's not the only thing holding it in place. But I did not do that last time, and the original did not do that, so I do not intend to do that this time unless I, bolt it on and find that for some reason it's slipping or whatever. But honestly, even long after the top is installed, you could undo you could just lift it this far up, undo that part, glue it, put it all back in, right? So it's not, I don't think, that hard of a fix if I'm wrong. In addition, once again, they tell you where to put the holes, but they don't drill the holes, put a little dot, so you got to drill all these holes yourself. This rail goes on next, and I wisely decided to make sure that these holes lined up with these holes before I drilled them out, and they do. Well, like everything else in this job, this is a royal pain. Here's why. These screws are very sharp, and they will go into the plastic behind even if they're not in the hole, because they're so sharp they'll just start to make their own hole. So you'd think, oh, no problem, I'll just line them up before I put them in, that way I know this is going into that hole. But how do you do that? Because that's what that looks like. That's what that looks like. Can you see through there? No. This part of the funnel, which is held up right there, and you can see it's ripped. It's ripped on both sides, and last time I repaired it, I guess poorly, with an extra piece of cloth. So I'm going to fix that better this time and re-secure it there. I think I'm going to do that next. The previous fabric I used to glue here was very strong, but I don't think it was vinyl, and I have now just used a piece of the old top and the new top, which should both be vinyl, and I'm going to glue those together. I put the glue on there, they're setting a little bit, and now I'm about to stick it on there, and I'll clamp it down for a little while just to make it, a strong bond, hopefully. The instructions say, there are finished fabric flaps in the area under the window. These are simply folded down into place. That's another way of saying we don't know where they go. This top was slightly different than the last top. It didn't have the loop that connected underneath the this hinge back here at all. It had Velcro all over the back in different areas, which the other one did too, but there's no clue what Velcro goes to where. So if it was obvious, then I went ahead and put the Velcro where it went, but if it wasn't, I just kind of left them laying there. So for instance, this piece can come up, so does that one. These are Velcroed together where my finger is, but nowhere else. So yeah, I think some of this gets flatter when it starts to shut. But just mark where they are when they come out. It may seem really obvious when you're taking it out, but it isn't so obvious when you're putting it back in. While I'm in there, again, gonna make a t-shirt says that. The back package tray isn't looking so great. I don't consider this that big of a deal because it doesn't really get seen very much. Even through the back window, it's kind of hard to see it. So, but, I cleaned a bunch of it off, trying to get some of that sticky stuff, whatever it was, off of there, and it left some weird marks and a discoloration, so I'm gonna give it a lick of paint. This actually came out pretty good. I'm very happy with that. A little note on doing the headliner. I put it in and I got close, but there was a little pucker, and I had that last time, and I decided, no, this time I'm gonna make sure it's perfectly straight. So I tried to slide it, but I couldn't slide it because I guess some of this is still sticky or something, I don't know, so I decided to pull it out. When I did, it wouldn't come out. Even though this metal hasn't been pressed in yet, it wouldn't come out. It was getting caught. There's a lip under there, I think, that this was getting caught on. And when I did, you can see how it messed. It's not flat anymore. It's not straight anymore. It's all. So you kind of have one shot at it. It's going to get worse as you go if you mess it up and you try and repeat it. So, just FYI. Also, I don't remember if I mentioned it before, so I'm just going to say that it goes above the bar that has the snaps on it. It goes, covers up the rest of the stuff. It's always nice to find an error on step 20 that you should have solved on step 5. So I'm going to tell you about it now. When you pull this over the front, make sure that this is already over the back, because now I can't, this comes all the way, the metal, it's hard to tell, but it's right there. Right at the end. This has to come over that, because when it shuts, if it comes up like that, it keeps this out of its track. That should be down. Plus, you can see how this is going kind of at an angle up. It needs to be down over that. So I got to figure out now how to make that happen. All right, to solve this problem, put the drill in there and just hog this hole out. Of course, we went a little downward. Isn't that nice? This one I'm going to poke a hole next to it, and the same here, because they're like even further off, I think. Alright, so the side front piece went on just fine. I'm guessing because that was made by Toyota. I tried to capture some material under that clip too, just to help, support. I don't think I did such a great job, but I just wanted to say, when you go to put the rubber part on, and the little one goes in the back here, I suggest you sort of do it in reverse order. Basically, try and get that in first, because it's kind of hard afterward. And the front one's kind of easier, because not only you have good access in the front, but you can kind of see through the holes to these two here. It's all done. At least the top part is. I still have the interior to put back in, but I'm not gonna show you that because it's just the reverse of what came out. It's child's play by comparison, and it's kind of a different video. I didn't peel the stuff off the glass yet, but ooh, that's like getting a new cell phone, right? There's only one problem is I can't shut it. It's close, but no cigar. So I'm gonna leave it in the garage for tonight. It's getting late. Tomorrow I will put it out in the sun to bake all day. Hopefully it will loosen up a bit. That's what they said in the instructions anyway, that it would loosen in the sun. Well, here's the final product. I even put the interior back in. My wife had helped me close it because I couldn't get it that last inch, but when I did, it really tightened up nicely back here. In fact, if you listen, it sounds a little like a drum. That's the Terminator theme. All right, so I'm having my wife spray the top so I can check for leaks. You can actually see the water down in that crack down there, see some drips. But that's supposed to happen, and it goes down the funnel to the drain. Found one right down there. Oh, lovely. I wonder how I take care of that. Yep, it's leaking down there too. All right, so I think those leaks are okay because it goes down and into the funnel and out the side. One thing I have found, however, is this funnel is still plugged up. So I saw online where a guy pulled this off and he had to clean it out from the other end basically. So I'm gonna do that to get that to drain properly. But before that, I think I'm gonna chance it and just wash and wax this car.